2 days after returning from paternity leave with a 2-month-old, got the news. At that point, realized it's now or never. This is the time to go for it. Almost 3 weeks ago, we closed on a tourism company in Alaska. Not just any tourism company, we're talking about fun tours, Arctic Circle tours, Northern Lights tours, snowmobile tours, dog mushing tours, like bucket list type stuff.
We just bought a multi-million-dollar company that does Northern Lights tours that doesn't even operate the majority of the year. And this is within a 12-month time frame.
I literally could not have done this without her. I always thought I had to go by myself. Whenever I tried to go by myself, there was always something missing. Within 24 hours, we had 250K and we had to say no to 4 or 5 different people.
All right. Kyle, when people are hearing about business buying and we're talking about business buying, people think, oh, I got to go buy the HVAC company down the street, owned by my Uncle Jeff, or owned by this old couple that's ready to retire. I got to buy a plumbing company. I got to buy something in the home services industry. That's what we see left and right over and over again. But you and I, my friend, along with Miss Ashley, purchased kind of a different business. What happened? Tell us about this deal, because I want people to realize that there's a little bit more outside of their buy box than they realize that's for sale.
Yes. So almost 3 weeks ago, we closed on a tourism company in Alaska. Not just any tourism company. We're talking about fun tours, Arctic Circle tours, Northern Lights tours, snowmobile tours, dog mushing tours, like bucket list type stuff. I care about giving people incredible experiences. Like, that's part of my long-term vision. This directly hits that. Like, imagine yourself going on that. You are going, by the way.
Twist my arm, dude. I'm ready to go. Yeah, so it's funny because we tell people we just bought a multi-million-dollar company that does Northern Lights tours that doesn't even operate the majority of the year. So tell us a little bit about the deal, and then we'll break it down for people that are coming in for the first time and they didn't hear your previous episode. Because, guys, if you are just now tuning in, Kyle and I did a full episode right after corporate America, and I told him I was going to buy a business with him. And now this is the episode where we bought the business together, and this is within a 12-month time frame. So we'll put that in the show description and in the link for the other episode. But okay, so tell us about the deal itself.
So this business, it's kind of right in the numbers that you look for when you're buying your business, at least that we've been coached on. It's a $1.9 million business as the purchase price, doing about 1.3 million in revenue and a little over 500K in SDE. And so you split that between Ashley and I, and a little bit, for investors as well. And you get to a point where not only does it hit our cash flow goals, both Ashley and I, as it exists right now, but it leaves a ton of upside in the future. And we made it happen through a combination of an SBA loan, seller finance, and a little bit of a down payment too, to make it all work.
Beautiful. And then how did we find this deal? And then we'll go backwards a little bit to describe your situation before.
So Ashley and I partnered up beginning of the year, and she, all credit to her, already had a dialed in acquisition system that I kind of jumped in on, where she had a VA who was going out and emailing tons of brokers, and was also looking at a bunch of listings, would essentially get it all the businesses the VA would get back would be put into an Excel sheet for Ashley to underwrite and review. And so she'd get a couple deals to review per day, and those that passed the initial sniff test, I'd then go out and speak with the brokers and get a lot more information and push the deal further to understand from there. And so when I jumped on, we probably went through 100 plus deals easily, and then looking really in depth, you're looking at more like 10 to 15 deals. And not all of them were actually as sexy as this company, to be honest. We looked at a lot of different ones, but we learned a lot along the way. And this one, when it came up, it was a hell yeah. It was, yes, this one we have to go after 100%. And it ended up being pretty difficult to negotiate, by the way. The former business owner, wanted to make sure that if we're going the SBA route, that the SBA lender was able to sign off on this exact deal. It wasn't just, hey, you're pre-qualified for up to 5 million, which we were. It was, no, I want you to find a lender who will sign off on this deal at that amount and guarantee that they're going to get you funding, which is like backwards from what it typically is. And that was the only way they're going to sell, because he didn't want to sell. His wife was forcing him to sell. So this was like his conditions. And so we did 2.5 months of negotiations, over 15 LOIs. Like, that's an insane amount of LOIs to take place. And we were finally able to kind of thread the needle and make it work with a lender and the seller and us to hit our numbers, only because we went through 15 lenders to find the right lender that was able to make this happen, and because we really pushed seller financing. Like, the deal was not going to work unless a portion of this was seller financed, and they finally realized this. And so we were able to finally get that to work after 2.5 months. And then you have your 4 months of due diligence, which was pretty intense, to be honest. And I honestly wish we went even more in depth. Like, there's things we uncovered that in hindsight we wish we went even more in depth. But finally that went through, and then went up to Alaska to seal the deal for it to sign, and then it got delayed even more. So we got there, and then it was a week and a half later that we finally signed, and it got delayed on the day of signing. And I remember the group chat we had with all the investors and the owners, and I have to imagine it from your side. You probably were like, when is this thing going to close? Why does it keep getting pushed? And then finally the text came through, pictures of us with the owners celebrating. It was fun, but it was kind of wild to get here.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I mean, just having done this a couple of times, I called it a mile away, but I just wasn't. I was trying to like keep you guys a little calm because it was Labor Day weekend and we were due for close the Tuesday after Labor Day, or was it Labor Day or Memorial Day?
Labor Day.
Labor Day. Yeah. So it was Labor Day weekend. And so I was like, there's no way in hell this closes after a long holiday. I was like, this is for sure going to push to Friday. And then that's when we ended up closing, was that Friday. So I was like, all right, cool. We're good on that one. But I want to highlight a few things there and then we'll go backwards a bit. But I think it's just really important for people to pay attention to how you guys formed this partnership. Actually, I will bookmark that. Let's go backwards first. And let's talk about, okay, like people are hearing you discuss seller finance, negotiations, 4 months of due diligence, as if you're some type of acquisitions expert. This was not the case. So walk us through before to what what your situation was in corporate, what happened, what transpired on our podcast, the decision that you made, and what brought us here. And then we will go into the partnerships, because there's so much that you just said about partnership that I want to pull out for the listener.
Yes. So if we rewind a little bit, we did a podcast 6-7 months ago where I had just gotten laid off from my corporate job. I had actually been part of Action Academy for about a year at that point, intending to create a lifestyle that made sense for me, my family, and was something where it was aligned with my long-term goals. I could support them, and I
On
didn't
top
have
of
to
your
be
job.
on top
That
of
was
my
the
job.
original plan. It was not to
Yeah,
even quit your job. You just were like, I like my job. My job pays me well. I want to build the skill sets, build the community, build the relationships to build wealth on top of my job because of how well this is going originally.
exactly. And joining Action Academy was, I had this concept in my head where I know there's something greater, there's something more I can be doing, something more fulfilling, something that impacts others more. And I haven't been able to figure out on my own. And so it's getting in those rooms, getting in front of mentors and people who have already done the thing I'm trying to do. And so it was kind of a year of this bouncing around my head and learning and learning. And then finally the axe came. Unfortunately, it was part of a layoff of 10% of the company after nearly a decade there. So
And
it was
paternity leave for you. You were on paternity leave with your first newborn.
2 days after returning from paternity leave with a 2-month-old, got the news. And so at that point, realized I had the support system, I had the goals, I had the vision, and I had luckily a little bit of cash stowed away to have some runway for the rest of the year. So it's now or never. This is the time to go for it. And so instead of trying to go for a new job, I went full on into entrepreneurship. But I was originally going the hospitality route, which I love creating great experiences for others. And I thought hospitality was actually the way to do that, but that's a long term play. I needed to change my cash flow situation within the next 7, 8 months, and buying a business was the way to do that. So that was the asset class I pivoted to and I focused on. And I ended up looking quite a bit and found a partner within Action Academy, which is Ashley, who's been, I can't say enough good things about her. I literally could not have done this without her. And so I want to highlight the concept of partnerships. I always thought I had to go by myself. And whenever I tried to go by myself, there was always something missing and it wasn't going as well or as far or as successfully as I'd hoped. I found this partner who had complementary skill sets, but a shared vision. And that was the key mindset, or the key partnership there. I love sales, marketing, partnerships, talking to people. I'm the front end. She is exceptional at operations, creating more efficient systems, the finance side, more of the back end, if you will. And so together, we're able to form a formidable team that could run any company.
I 100% agree with that. And from my perspective, every single deal that I've partnered with, which for people listening, this has been my largest single capital investment into any deal thus far. I gave you guys 150 grand to do this one. I didn't even think twice about it. Like as soon as I wired the money, had zero stress, zero concern. I was like, you know what, go do it. Like I don't even know when the distributions begin, to be completely honest with you. I'm just like, you guys tell me, and then let's just rock and roll from there. Um, so I want to highlight a few things. One, I want to highlight like y'all's partnership from my perspective, and then I would like for you to share some advice from your perspective. Number one, when I'm partnering as a capital partner, what I'm looking for is number one, I underwrite the operators. I don't underwrite the deal as much. So I will look at the deal and I will back the napkin it to make sure that it makes sense. Number one. So I'll do like a high level underwrite of the deal. I'll do a more significant underwrite of the opportunity itself and the market itself. So I'm like, okay, cool. From a business perspective, from a business plan, from a market perspective, how does this look? And then the third thing is I'm looking for an operating team. I don't want to just be relying on one guy or one girl. Every single deal that I invest in has at least two operating partners that are complementary together because it builds a more cohesive unit where you guys can go and as you're getting your ass kicked, which will happen in business, you have somebody to lean on. Whereas if I like, and this is a selfish thing, but it is true from anybody that wants to be a passive investor like me. If you have a solo founder that you're investing in, they're going to be reaching out to you a lot with the emotional support because, frankly, they just need it. Whereas if you have a partner, you're going through the trenches together, you have somebody that's down there. I want to highlight a specific moment where everything changed for me. And I was like, I am just going to blindly invest with you guys because we share all the highlight reels. And I want to share a moment where things kind of went sideways. And I was like, you guys pulled it through. So the first presentation call that we did, it was like me, you, and Ashley, and we hopped on. And I was like, all right, guys, like I'm cool for the 150, but let's talk through it. And we start going through it. It's like the Wi-Fi is bad. It's like a presentation that's done, but it's like we're kind of going through it. And it was just like, I was like, yo, I don't feel good about investing in this deal. Like this experience isn't that great. And you and I talked about it afterwards, and you're like, hey man, I'm sorry that you feel that way. Like, let's do it again. Like, we want you on here. Like, let's redo it. And then you guys came on, and it was the best presentation I've ever freaking seen. And I was just like, dude, it was perfectly done, perfectly presented, perfect like slideshow, answered every single question exactly how I wanted to be answered. And it was just a really cool moment of, okay, cool. Like we're gonna step up to the plate. Like we're not here when things go good. We're here to fix things. And you guys crushed it. And so that was a moment for me where I was like, I trust these guys. I can work with these guys through anything. I'm ready to freaking go. And so, talk a little bit more about the importance of partnership and who you're looking for, and how you look for Ashley or any of the other potential deals. And then let's talk a little bit about the deal structure and how you guys are using me as capital. Because from a perspective of buying a business with low or no money down, and seller finance negotiating it down to $0 down versus how you and I and Ashley are doing it, I greatly prefer this strategy. So let's talk a little bit more about what goes into you deciding the partnership, and then we'll talk about that strategy.
Yes. So finding Ashley as a partner, um, and any partner, felt daunting initially, but I look back and it really took me a month. That was it. Um,
Yeah. Well, when you're focused, then yeah.
yeah. And so I definitely want to credit some mentors and other folks in the group who gave great advice on this. I'll call out two. One was Cassidy Warren. I spoke with him. He's doing great things in
Hotels. Yeah.
hospitality world and has his own podcast. Um, and I asked him about partnerships, and he said a really funny one. He goes, "Don't be thirsty." And at first, you're like, "That's very strange advice." But when you think about it, is if you're being needy and immediately saying, "I need this. This is what I want," you might get someone who has that, but for the most part, it's a one-way conversation. It's a one-way, stream of value. But if you kind of flip it in reverse, which goes in line with what Mason Miranda in our group really harps on from the book The Go Giver, is leading with value. And so, how are you able to create that value exchange when it's a truly a win-win situation for people? And so, the way I decided to approach it, even though I had like a timeline and runway with money as well, I decided for once in my life to actually listen to mentors and applied this concept. And so, I went out in the hospitality group and the small business group within Action Academy, and shared what I can offer to others. And I also looked and saw what posts were taking place and see what people were looking for, and saw where I could plug the gaps and help them and offer advice. And there were a couple different situations where I was able to provide something that helped someone. And in Ashley's case, she had been working with a partner, and they decided it didn't make sense to work together. And so she was sharing, "Hey, I'm kind of going at it myself for now, and I'm running into this challenge where I don't have the proof of funds for one of these brokers to let me see the information on a deal." It's kind of this gatekeeping thing that a lot of brokers do, is just to make sure you're not kicking the tires. Like, do you actually have the funds to make a
Yeah. You
trade?
want funds, capital, or you want a pre-qual letter from the
Yeah.
SBA.
How do you remove all of these concerns out of the gate from a broker? And that's one of them. And so at that point, she was looking for someone who had proof of funds at a certain level, and I actually had that at this point. So I said, "Hey, you're welcome to use it." And it was a week or two, and um, she used it, and then she posted again, like, "Hey, I'm actually looking for someone who doesn't mind talking with brokers. I'm active military right now. It's very hard for me to talk to brokers in the day, and that's not something I enjoy that much. I'll underwrite all day." And I said, "I can do that, no problem." And so we just kind of tested it out for a week and a half, and I was helping talk to a lot of brokers for her. And then I got laid off. Actually, I should say, I should back up. It all led up to this. So I already had started that before I got laid off, and um, realized that this is something that I wanted to pursue further, and just had an open conversation with her. It seemed like we were a decent fit, and we both have similar goals and complementary skill sets. Should we test this out? And so we tested it for a couple weeks and then decided to go full on after that. But that didn't happen until I had already built up trust with her, was helping her. And by the way, there were like 10 other folks that in some capacity was doing something like this as well. And this was one of 10 that took place, which enabled this partnership to happen.
Yeah, I absolutely love it, man. And to go back to a meaningful example that you shared kind of in passing previously, is you said, "Oh yeah, she built up this system where a VA was feeding her deals and she was underwriting them, and then she needed somebody to talk to the brokers because broker conversations are much more of a rapport relationship." And so you need somebody that can go on there and like, you can talk the talk. You're just trying to build a relationship. And she's like, "Dude, I don't want to do that. I want to, like, first off, I don't got time for that. Second off, that's not my skill set. I want to be in the background, like being an operational freaking genius here." And so you came in and you were able to help with that side of it. So as a reminder, the lesson here, like the bumper sticker is find somebody that's complementary to what you do. For me in sales and marketing, I'm looking for somebody that's in systems and ops and kind of risk mitigation. Whereas I'm like, I want to go full on with it. Um, when we were doing our operating agreements, can you talk about kind of V1 of the operating agreement and V2 of the operating agreement? Because you guys made some wonderful changes to it because I was able to read through it pretty extensively. And in the beginning, like I think a lot of people mess up operating agreements. So can you first describe what an operating agreement is and then the changes and lessons that you guys had from drafting it and kind of editing it?
Yeah, the operating agreement basically outlines how you are agreeing to operate the business in all facets. Like um, what happens when this takes place? What happens when this takes place? What are we agreeing to work on? How do we delineate responsibilities, etc.? And it's a formal way to put it in writing so that there's no gray area later on when there inevitably will be something that pops up. And so initially, we went through and tried to outline as much as possible. I think your feedback was very helpful, and it was honestly direct and brutal, but it's what we needed, which was cool. That's nice. That's cute. But this needs to be an operating disagreement, I think is the phrase,
Yep.
versus an agreement. What happens when one of you decides you're not going to work as much as you agreed upon? What happens when there's a divorce or anything other pops up? You need to outline all of that and specifically call out what's going to happen, or else you're putting yourself in a really difficult situation later on.
Yep.
So
And,
uncomfortable conversations, but we were glad we had those.
and it should feel that way. It should feel that way. And that's why I'm so glad that you guys sent it to me. Because when a lot of people, when they're first getting started, your operating agreement is like, oh my God, we're going to take on the moon and the stars. And I'm going to do sales and marketing and you're going to do operations. We're putting in the operating agreement. Here's how we're going to split the profit. And, okay, let's do some hard negotiations. I'll take 51%. You take 49%. I'll be the majority. I'll be the deciding vote. And like, you're thinking of all the positives, but nobody's thinking about, okay, well, what happens if you just decide 2 years deep to just stop doing shit?
Yeah.
Then what happens? Because I've got so many friends that all of a sudden they're partners. And so number one is responsibilities like that. Number two, how do they get bought out of the company?
Yeah.
Because I've got friends that bought a company at a 3x multiple. 3 years later, their business partner who owns 50% of the company now decides, hey, I just don't want to do it. I'm just not going to work at all. And they own 50%. They're getting 50% of the profit. And they want to kick them out. And they're like, okay, well, I want a 6x multiple because that's the current market rate. And now all of a sudden, you're paying double what your values are worth to this person. And you know that that's not the fair market multiple you would get if you sold the company. So it's a disagreement because the only time you're going to look at it a year, 2 years, 5 years down the line is when you're fighting. So you need to have everything in there. We even included a clause where for me as a capital partner and me as an advisor, it's like, okay, what percentage is revenue and what percentage is profit share tied to the actual capital allocation versus performance of said duties? I said, okay, well, what if I get hit by a car? And I'm hospitalized for 90 days. Do my distributions just get wiped out because I'm hospitalized for 90 days? God, like terrible idea, terrible thing to think about. But another one was I did another operating agreement where I was like, well, hey, what happens if you and your wife get divorced? Like, what happens to the business? Because it's a husband and a wife that I'm partnering with. I'm like, what if you guys get divorced? Like, what would happen with the company? And that's stuff that we have to talk about. It
Yeah.
sucks.
No,
But that's what makes a strong operating agreement. And that's
yep.
where most people go wrong. So I love that you guys were able to fix it. Now, talk a little bit about how you structure the capital stack, because I've talked a lot about like my side of the capital stack on the podcast, but I'm curious from your perspective because I think capital in business buying is one of the easiest conversations to have. It's an easier conversation to have than even raising money for real estate. So can you describe about the process for people that are listening to this, that are coming into Action Academy or listening to the podcast? They've got $30,000 to $50,000 saved up and they're like, how the hell would I buy a $2 million company? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yes, this is something I had no clue about until I actually started going through the process,
Yeah.
but learned quite a bit. And so I think, finding each different business we found was slightly different in ways to go about it. Sometimes business owners are okay with nearly 100% seller finance. That's super rare, by the way. Sometimes they want no seller finance. Sometimes it's okay. We're okay with a very, very small amount, like 10%. And so we had to kind of back into what was possible by what the current, now former business owner wanted and expected, and then also what was possible from a lending perspective,
Hmm.
and also what made sense from what we were able to contribute, what we thought we could raise, how that impacted cash flow, and the goals we had with it. So it was really threading this needle, but it all depended upon what we could get from lending. And so that's why I went out and talked to many brokers, um, or excuse me, lenders about this. And I learned that no two lenders are exactly the same. And it's
No.
really important to have a lot of conversations, not just go with the first one, because not only do different lenders have different interpretations of the SBA regulations, they also focus on different areas and are able to lend at different terms and care about different aspects of the deal. So one broker is or lender is going to have a very, very, very different mindset and capability than another one. So we were able to talk to 10 to 15 and finally found one that was okay with this deal in the ways that made sense for us and could lend at rates that worked. But the one stipulation was that they needed to have some seller financing, and it was more that than the existing owner wanted to do. So we were actually able to push the existing owner from 10% seller finance to up to 17% of the deal to be seller financed. So I think what it came out to was a total of about 2 million of a total loan, because we included some working capital in that. 17% of it was seller financed, 10% was the down payment, and the rest was an SBA loan.
Can you talk about working capital and how do you go about? Because I don't think we've talked about it too much on the podcast. Uh, Tell us what working capital is and how much should you allocate into your loan, if possible.
So it's essentially funds you're going to need to fund your business, especially in the beginning, right? When you join, when you buy a company, there's going to be expenses before some income comes in, and you need to have a cushion in case certain things happen. And so we needed to allocate a certain amount that we were comfortable with. Ashley is actually the guru on that side. So she'd be able to give a much better answer. But for us, we wanted to make sure we had, I think it was 6 months of expenses at this point. I know some recommend a little less, some recommend more. For us, that was what we were okay with.
Hmm.
And there were a bunch of different ways to go about it, but we were able to actually wrap it into the loan for the most part. And we ended up unintentionally over raising a little bit from investors. So between the two, we had plenty.
Yeah, so working capital is super important. From us at Action Academy, we keep 90 days of working capital at all times in cash. That would cover the entire operations of the company. I would suggest closer to 6 months. It depends how good your margin is and how capital expensive, how deep you are in like capex with your company, how capex heavy you are in the company. So we're very capex light, and so we can be a little leaner with our working capital. But I think that's a great point to discuss right there. Um, so so you're talking about all of this different stuff with all these different seller financing terms, all of the different kind of capital raising stuff. So talk about like the actual raise itself. So somebody that's listening to this may be like, okay, I understand how you raise money for like a real estate syndication, kind of, sort of. 30% goes to the GP, 70% goes to the LPs that get an 8% preferred return, and in 3 to 5 years, they get their money back times, a multiple at sale. How does it work in business from your guys' perspective?
Well, for us, again, Ashley was able to put together what the returns were going to be, and we talked to a lot of different mentors and capital raising experts to be able to understand what was attractive for potential investors. And we wanted to make sure it was higher than other asset classes because there's a higher associated risk with business. And we wanted to make sure that we aligned our interests with our investors long term. And so that's it's very unique to each business. And again, I'm not the expert in this, so if I start quoting numbers to you, it's not going to be relevant to every business. But for us, and the area that I found helped us the most in our capital raising experts was that Ashley and I had been telling our story to folks in the group. People had been hearing about it and following along, and saw that we were partners, saw that we were going after a business. And then the saga of us going through 15 LOIs. And then when we finally got the LOI accepted, it was one of the craziest moments I think I had ever been a part of, just because it blew my expectations out of the water in terms of the response from folks in the group. And so we both posted that we signed, we had the LOI signed, and that we'd be open to taking on a few investors. We didn't put terms. We didn't say you need to invest in us. It was more, we're open to taking on investors. We signed, and here's this business, and this is how exciting it is. Anyone want to talk? And we blew up. We had maybe 6 to 10 people reach out right out of the gate. You were right on top of that. Kudos to you. But there were a bunch of others as well. And so what ended up happening was we thought we needed to raise 200K. Within 24 hours, we had 250K, and we had to say no to 4 or 5 different people. It was one of the most surreal experiences, because initially I felt raising capital would be difficult. But I think the way we set it up and the trust we built with everyone in the group ahead of time enabled this to all take place. If they didn't know who we were in the group, no one trusted us, and we started saying this, it wouldn't be exactly the same. But I'm really proud and happy to say that our investors are 100% from Action Academy. So it's 100% Action Academy owned business, and we got a lot of upside here. So hopefully everyone comes out on the winning side in a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that at all. Yeah, and it's funny because you say that, and a lot of people say that in Action Academy. Like Mason just texted me. He goes, "Hey, he's like, I've got about 20 people that I could text at any given week and say, hey, do you want to throw 50 grand towards this?" And he said they will, and that's not normal, you know.
No,
And so it's funny whenever it's like not something that we pitch on like the application calls for Action Academy, but it's like, dude. The amount of capital that you get access to. And I've gotten 5 or 6 DMs personally of people that want to do what I'm doing that are members. I won't share their names, but they are saying like, "Hey, I've got $500,000 in cash. Like, I'm holding out for more small businesses so I can go do exactly what you're doing. How are you doing it?" So there's like millions of dollars of capital for that available, especially for small business. And I do want to point out another thing that's really important. As much as I'd love to stroke my own ego as somebody that's like the creator of the group and the founder of the group, and of course I add value. If I like, you can't get ready, you have to stay ready when it comes to deals like this. No matter how good I am, or no matter how much value you guys think that I could bring, if I wasn't fast to this deal, I probably would not have a spot. And it's super important to state that, because for people that do want to invest and do have capital, you got to stay ready, dude. You got to be liquid. You got to have cash. You got to be fast. Every deal that I've done in Action Academy, this is my 4th deal that I've done with you guys. And I'm like the first comment or the first person, or I get a text message that says, "Hey, call them right now." And I have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting ready to go, waiting. And I'm able to be able to pitch my value proposition out the gate. So, for anybody that's a capital investor, speed is king. And I think that same concept applies to deal flow too. Like, you cannot sit and think about it for days and days and days. You have to have a strong action muscle and be able to underwrite something fast, make an offer fast. Is there anything that you would like to add to that, Kyle? Maybe from the rest of the process as well, with the LOIs and with the actual business process.
Well, one thing I'd say just on the capital raising standpoint, I think the leverage kind of shifted really quickly from we initially it was we have no clue what the response is going to be, how long this is going to take, who's going to be interested, to there's a ton of people interested. Well, how do we think about this to set our business up for success, to set these investors.
Strategically.
And so the way we determined who would be the ideal investors was we set up calls with all of them, and we wanted to understand what they were thinking about, what they were comfortable with. Yes, what the numbers looked like going through the business, but it was also what are their skill sets? What could they potentially contribute to add value to this deal beyond capital? And it takes a certain investor to be willing to do that, to be excited to do that, and to have that skill set. And we were very fortunate that we were able to get a quite diverse group of investors that were all bought into that. You come in with a ton of business expertise and knowledge and connections and the social media side. We have another investor, Marissa, who has phenomenal tourism marketing experience, like insane experience from that standpoint. We have Raj coming in from the finance standpoint. We have Zach coming in from the hospitality standpoint. Oh, by the way, that's where we're heading long term. Spoiler alert. So we feel like we have a really solid bench here, and we're pretty pumped to have everyone involved. And we're
Dude,
lucky,
it's
in fact, that we have this.
I, I would say that, yeah, I mean, we're all lucky, but it's like you make your own luck because there's so many members, and it's something that I've talked about too, where the reason that we do the events that we do, for an Action Academy like big event, like our Cancun events and stuff like that, they're $4,000 to go to. Like it's not like $100, and we don't make money from those. Like that's us reinvesting every single dollar into the experience itself. And when we do that, it's like, who are the people that are in these rooms, right? It's the people that you meet in person and you're seeing each other and you're shaking hands and you're hanging out at the hot tub and you're having some drinks together and you're in the pool together. It's like, those are the people that you're going to be like, okay, cool. I've got like a note on you and I've got an eye on you. Like, I'm excited to see what happens next. And candidly for you, I was already looking for someone. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to invest with Kyle, like whatever business Kyle does. And I think I even texted you that. I was like, whatever business Kyle does, I'm in. And so I was already bought in on you. And so I was like, okay, cool. So here's the deal. All right, sweet. Kyle's running it. I'm good. And then I was like, okay, now like let me underwrite Ashley. And then I talked to Ashley and I was like, oh, this is like you guys together are like a freaking super couple. Like this is like a freaking power team that's going to be able to pull this off. And so super exciting. Let's now pivot a little bit to the close into, and then you go from diligence to now you take ownership of the asset, you take ownership of the business. Tell us the good, the bad, the ugly, because we share a lot about like the practical and tactical things to do. But walk us through like, how's it feel like? How's it taste like? How's it smell like? What does it feel like to go through this process?
It was
A
an
lot.
emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
um, because nothing is certain until you sign that paper on the day of closing. We put so much time and effort, and then at one point we basically said, hey, we're going all in this, we're not even looking at other deals because we're so confident, we're so close on this. And there was a huge risk to that, right? If this fell apart, you start all the way back over. That's another 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months. And so it's a good thing this closed. But when we finally closed, by the way, it was delayed and there were issues at the closing table. There was a hilarious moment when one of the sheets was actually completely ripped at that point. I won't name names, not me, but it was pretty dramatic and funny. But then we figured it out and got them to print it back out and sign. But 5 hours later in that day, we signed. Took pictures with the now former owners, went out to dinner with them to celebrate. And then guess what? We're owners. It started. It was like a very brief celebration, and then it was game on. Because what was unique about this is we had worked with the former owners to set a company picnic on a Sunday, and we closed on the Friday. And so we got to meet the operations manager finally in person. Um, that Friday, we got to meet the assistant operations manager that Saturday, and then we met the entire company on the picnic on Sunday. And so it was immediately prepping with Ashley how we're going to handle things, what we want to communicate, what we want to hold back right now, um, and then how we're going to handle everything, and then sharing notes along the way. So it was actually pretty in depth, but luckily we got to meet everyone. I'd say 70% of the company. There's 14 guides, 2 mechanics, 3 office staff, and we learned a lot in those 3 days. We learned a ton. I'll share some. I don't want to share, too much, but we learned that the office staff was very excited for us to take over. The former owners were looking to retire for a long time, and it was evident in the way they ran the business that they were trying to retire. They were actually gating growth, which is great for us, meaning that there was the demand there, but they were artificially tamping it down in order to maintain a lifestyle and just get rid of the thing. And so what it translated to was the existing employees were getting frustrated with areas they could improve and grow the business and potentially earn more themselves, but they were being told, nope, we're not changing at all. And so when they finally met us and understood our vision and how we were going to run things, there was a lot of excitement at the possibility and where it could go. But then also from the guide standpoint, they're like, can we change this, this, and this? Like, this doesn't make sense. The office staff saying this doesn't make sense. And so learning, I think I've looked into a lot of Hormozy stuff and a couple of podcasts you did with Cody Barton and a few other folks on what do you do when you take over a business. Well, the prevailing advice is don't change anything right away. Just audit. Just understand what's taking place.
Two ears, one mouth. Just
Exactly.
shut up and shut up and listen for 30 days.
We intended to do that, and for the most part, we are. But there were so many little suggestions that the employees had where they're like, can we please change this? This doesn't make sense. Like an example is, well, the office staff actually makes sandwiches before the tour guides take the vans to go pick up the guests, and they have sandwiches on tour. First of all, that's not the best use of office staff time. We'll discuss that one later. But there were little things like the previous owner wanted them to put carrots on the sandwich because that's what he cared about. And it took an extra 30 minutes to slice them up and put them on, all 30 sandwiches. It cost money, and it was a giant waste, and even the guests didn't even like it. And so they said, can we please change this? We're like, that's a really easy change. No carrots. Very easy. So we made that change. Like it's simple, but it built up morale in the company, and they're like, thank goodness. There were a couple little things with the office they wanted changed, and a few others, but those were the type of things we're changing. Bigger changes will come in the future.
Yeah, so it's and also like this is a super cool period for Action Academy now, because now that we're going into year 3, going into January, it's like now we get to roll out a whole new suite of services, and now we're bringing on coaches and mentors and people that are specifically helping with this side of acquisition now, where it's like, okay, now what happens with acclimation, which is what you guys are going through here for the next 90 days. Okay, cool. How do we think about things like an owner? How do we think about, instead of me doing more work, how do we think about how do I inspire, motivate, train somebody else to do this function and have them completely own it, right? And then go from that to now the architecture, where it's how do we build the meetings? How do we build the cadence? Which ones of us are on the ground? Like, what vacations do we take? How do we run the year of this company? And how do we run the actual weekly flow of things? That way, yeah, so that way you become the actual business owner, and then you run your business doesn't run you, right? And so the biggest thing that I would recommend for you guys right now is, again, it's like 2 ears, one mouth. Like, be listening to everything, take everything into account. And then what I'd be doing is I'd be keeping a master doc where you've got like all of the potential problems, all the potential stuff. And then you're also looking at the different fires, and you're labeling the fires, and you're saying, is this a dumpster fire or is this a kitchen fire? So is this a dumpster fire or is this a kitchen fire? It's one of my favorite new phrases. And because you're going to have right now like 900 fires burning at the same time, and you cannot put them all out at the same time. So it's like, okay, is this inside the house where this is going to burn my house down, or is this just going to burn the dumpster down outside? And so you got to figure it out. And then you also have to take into account, take inventory of, okay, cool. Like, so who are the A players? Who are the B players? Who are the F players? Right? So there is no C. So that's my favorite thing that my coach takes me through is rank every single employee 1 out of 5. You cannot say a 3. Can't say a 3.
I like that. Forces you to make.
It forces you to make a decision and an honest decision.
Yeah.
So 2 different things. When you're going through your entire team, and you're ranking them 1 through 5 on 2 different things. First one is performance. So like how well they do the job, just like how they're executing, like how they're performing, 1 out of 5 today. And that just takes time. That's going to take you 60, 90 days to like actually see. So 1 out of 5 on performance, you cannot say a 3. So it's either going to be a 4 or it's going to be a 2. And then after that, you're going to rank every single employee 1 out of 5 on attitude. So like how willing are they to be trained? How coachable are they? You know, how is the energy that they're bringing to the team, to the thing? Because there's only 3 reasons that an employee doesn't do something. It's either a can't do, it's a won't do, or there's an obstacle in the way. So like can't do is they do not have the proper resources or training. They just cannot do the thing. They don't know how to do the thing. An example of that right now in Action Academy is Stephania is learning how to do ads. She had to learn how to do sales meetings and how to be a manager of a sales team. Like this is not won't do. It's just can't do. She didn't have the skill sets. Now she's building the skill sets, and we're investing in training for that. Won't do is an attitude problem. So won't do is like, okay, this person just won't do what we're asking them to do. Got it. And then obstacle in the way is probably one of the more common ones where they want to do it, they can do it, but the driver and the result still isn't being done. So there's an obstacle in the way that's preventing that. And for this, it could be the carrots. It's like, hey, we need to get the tours done by this time, but this, and this are happening. We have to slice up these fucking carrots and we have to do all of this stuff. And therefore we cannot get the tour done on time.
Yeah.
So they can do it. They want to do it, but there's an obstacle in the way. So we're identifying all 3 of those with each one of the employees. And then you take a good hard look at the end and be like, okay, cool. Like what's the actual story here? And then that goes to a whole point of like a scoreboard system. So right now, you know, if you guys are going and God, man, I want to keep going with you for another like freaking hour. We can maybe do an entire coaching call on this. But right now, I guess to close this out, if you could pick 3 things, like what are your guys' 3 primary focuses that you're focusing on right now to double or triple this business?
So initially, it's identify everything that's taking place. We've already identified a couple fires, a few dumpster fires. So it's taking care of those immediately to ensure that we're sustaining. And then it's how do we add fuel to a fire in a good way, not a dumpster one, a good way.
Yeah.
It's going to come from sales and marketing and partnerships. I'm going to a conference in Anchorage in October, by the way, in like 4 weeks. And then lastly, it's cultivating a culture and a team that is entirely bought in and have the right skill sets and attitudes to be able to take us there. And each one of those, we're in the early days on, but all of those will take place. Not to mention, we're going to rebrand Hello Alaska Wild Lights. And we're going to add some pretty cool tours, by the way. We're going to do overnight Northern Lights dog sledding tours with a 6-time Iditarod racer, which is going to be really cool.
Freaking sick. Dude, at the end of the day, the one last closing piece of advice I can give in is to get weigh-in before buy-in, right? You got to get weigh-in before buy-in. So number 1 piece of advice is don't should all over yourself. Don't say you should do this, you should do that, we should do this, we should do that. Like, you guys are going to see some glaring gaping holes in the business, right? especially after talking with everyone. It's never your idea. It's the employee's idea. That's how they get buy-in, because now it's like you have them weigh in to get buy-in. So now it's like the employees are all saying, okay, well, cool. Like if this is the goal right now, what do you think we should change to get to that goal? And they'll be like, well, obviously we should do this, this, and this. You're like, got it. Cool. And then you give them the credit. So it's a cash and credit business. You get the cash, they get the credit.
I love it.
That's how you build. I mean, dude, it's just like, if you do that system externally and you do the 1 out of 5 can't be a 3 internally, like that will take you guys through 90 days easy. Like y'all will have the decisions. So man, in closing, we can do a whole other call on this stuff. I freaking love this stuff. But in closing, man, what's some advice that you would give to anybody that's going through acquisitions right now, or maybe they're listening to this podcast and they're like, I hear about this Action Academy thing. You know, I've been listening for a year, still haven't pulled the trigger, but I want to buy a small business. What would you tell them?
It's hard to do by yourself. If you think you can do it by yourself, good luck to you. Some people can do that.
Real hard.
And a lot of other people, you need to surround yourself with people who have already done the thing and people who are willing to give you honest feedback and guidance and help along the way. And that was really the game changer for me. The other side is be okay with failure. Failure is information. Failure is something to learn from, not to be afraid of. The person who starts sooner and iterates very quickly is way further ahead than the person who waits for the perfect moment. And if you combine those together, the right rooms, mentors, people who've already done the thing, and just starting, you're going to get there. It's not going to be perfect, but you're going to get there versus waiting for a perfect moment and not get there ever.
Question, man, in closing. You've been a business owner for 3 weeks. How much more have you learned as a business owner for 3 weeks versus the 3 months to 3 years that you've spent studying it?
So much. A lot of it's the human element that's so important to dial in. It's hard to get that from a book or a podcast. The human element, handling those one-on-ones and handling situations, you kind of have to learn from experience.
1,000%. You just got to go through it. Got to go to it and go through it, man. So if people want to follow you to find out more, if they want to follow the company, where can they go? And also, where can they book a tour if they want to go see the freaking Northern Lights?
Yes. So I think this is the first time we're actually announcing what the company is. So the company is AlaskaWildlifeGuide.com. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us book directly. And I'm really pumped. The company never does promotions. They have never done discounts except a 5% military discount our friends and family. For anyone who is in Action Academy or is listening to the podcast and wants to take an incredible bucket list adventure, we will give 10% off. Woo! Just call us in the number on the website or book online and call out that you are involved with Action Academy. We will honor it. We can't wait to show you an incredible time. Come up. Have some fun up north.
And that's Fairbanks, correct?
Fairbanks.
It's Fairbanks, Alaska, baby. Let's go. All right, guys, you're going to have that in the show description. And as always, and Kyle, where can people follow you to follow you personally?
The best place is Instagram, Kyle.Luets, Luets. We'll be sharing much more. We're going to build up the social media presence and share more of the story as we go. I appreciate anyone who wants to reach out. Happy to be an open book, help with business acquisition, or just bounce ideas off you. Let's go.
Let's freaking go, man. Appreciate you. Excited for the growth. Excited to share the success stories, man. Let's freaking triple this freaking business and be the best tour guide company in Alaska, man.
10X.
10X, man. 10X. Let's go. All right, guys. This has been Brian and Kyle with the Action Academy podcast. Signing off.